Hello, everyone. My name is Francesca, and I am with the Arts Council of Ladysmith and District. I am here today on the traditional territory of the Stimulus First Nations here in Ladysmith, BC, on Vancouver Island. And I am really excited today because we are going to be doing an interview with the playwright of the upcoming production, The Nighthawks, which will be performed at the Cedar Community Hall. This is a partnership with the Yellow Point Drama Group and the Arts Council of Ladysmith and District. Michelle Deines is the winner of the 2019 BC Playwriting Competition, and we are very excited to be putting on her play for the very first time. This will be the world premiere starting on September 30th to October 16th. So please join me in welcoming Michelle, who will be joining us from Vancouver.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Deines and I'm a writer and an instructor. I work at Capilano University in North Vancouver and I'm calling in today from East Van from Vancouver.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about the world premiere of your new play, The Nighthawks, which is going to be presented at the Cedar Community Hall. And it's a partnership with the Yellow Point Drama Group and the Arts Council of Ladysmith and District. And you were the winner of I believe it was the 2019 playwriting competition. And I'm just wondering what inspired you to write The Nighthawks, and if you could also include a little bit about what The Nighthawks is actually about.
Yeah, it was 2019 and then it all got interrupted by the pandemic. So the Nighthawks is basically about two siblings, so about Vicky and Roger, and their elderly father has just passed away, and they are kind of the course of the play is told in a series of present day scenes but also flashbacks, and it's about them essentially kind of coming to terms with the death of their father, but also a rift that has grown between the two of them. And actually, I mean, it's kind of inspired by true events, about some difficulties that happened in my family when my grandmother passed away. And so it's not the events that are in the play aren't real, but kind of my idea when I wrote it was I wanted, in a way, to give the characters a chance to connect that maybe they didn't have in real life or didn't have at the time that all those things happened. And also, it was kind of based on like a what if premise, like what if somebody actually tried to do this. So the kind of the main plot is started when the character of Vicky illegally exhumes her father's ashes because she wants to scatter them in his hometown in Alberta, where he said he always wanted to return to. So that was kind of my idea, is like, what if someone actually did that because they're so determined to fulfill their parents' dying wish? And so so that's where the play came from and what it's about.
How did you hear about the playwriting competition?
You know what? I'm not 100. It was a while ago now. I bet I must have heard it through. There's an organization in Vancouver called the Playwrights Theater Center, and so I'm a member there. And they have a newsletter. And one of the things with that is, like a call for submissions or opportunities. So, and I think also I was kind of drawn to it because a big part of the play is set on Vancouver Island, and that's where I was raised. And so just to me, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great for this play to happen on Vancouver Island? Because like more than half of the play takes place there. So I just thought that would be a good fit for the play. So that was why I submitted, and I'm pretty sure it was through the Playwright Center.
For emerging playwrights, do you think it's important for them to take part in opportunities like this and part of, at looking at playwriting competitions in their community or outside of their community? Are there benefits for people actually wanting to take part in something like that?
Oh yeah, totally. It's really hard. There's not a lot of theater in Canada, and so if you're writing your own plays, it's very hard to kind of break in and make connections with companies to produce your work. So a really great way to do that is contests, because you usually pay a submission fee, and you're kind of guaranteed for your play to at least be read, which when you do just a cold submission to a company, you don't actually know if that will happen, because companies don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of people who can read plays that are cold submissions. A couple of plays I've had, one play I got produced in Calgary several years ago was through a similar thing. It was actually I think it was like a call for submissions for a workshop series. And so I got called in to do the workshop, and then from the workshop they liked the play and they did a production of it a couple of years later. So those kinds of things are really great ways for writers to get their work read by people in the community and to make connections with companies, which is ultimately how you can get your work out there. Unless you do it yourself, which is a whole other thing, which is also a great venue, a great way to do it, but it's a lot of work. So,
Can you just talk to us a little bit about the process that you've kind of gone through with this production?
yeah, it's been over a few years actually. So I wrote it on my own and then I self-produced a workshop. So I got a grant, I think from the city of Vancouver, and we did like a 2 or 3 day workshop with actors and a director, and then did a read through of it. And then a couple years later, I actually did a workshop with Theatre One in Nanaimo. So I went over there and did a read through with that company. And both of those workshops sort of elicited changes. Like there was great discussions about the play, and then for me, I did, got ideas to develop the play from it. And then also when I won the contest with Yellow Point, part of that was also that I would work with a dramaturg, and so, or dramaturge, I don't actually know how to say it. Um, so that was delayed, but eventually, basically, I guess it was this spring. So Michael Armstrong, who was directing the production, he had read the script and had sent me a whole bunch of notes. And so I went back to those and kind of looked through the notes and then did another redraft. So it's been like a fairly extended process. Part of that is a delay of the pandemic, but yeah, I would say that's having it read by actors is really the best way, in my experience, for plays to get developed. But that was the experience with this play.
What are some of the challenges of working through a play that has never been performed before?
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't been part of the rehearsal process. The biggest reason is because of distance. So it's just not really practical for me to get over to be part of the rehearsal process. I did speak with Armando of Yellow Point, and he is building the set. And so part of the first scene, the characters actually go into a grave. And so he said that has been really challenging. And I knew that it would be when I wrote it, but I was like, it doesn't have to be realistic. I feel like this could work. So, I mean, I think because I've been actually a bit removed from the rehearsal process, I just haven't been a part of that. But I would say, when it's a new play, I've been writing plays long enough now that what I've come to try to do is to like trust the audience's imagination and trust that they will kind of meet you there. Like I teach actually a playwriting class, part of a team of teachers at CAP, and I tell the students, you trust the intelligence of your audience. It's like Julie Taymor, who is a director. She directed Frida. She directed The Lion King, the stage version of The Lion King. And she said in the theater, the audience knows they're in the theater and they finish the sentences with you. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with this play, because in some ways it's non-realistic. We jump around in time. We see a ghost or a dream character, so my hope is that the audience will finish the sentences with me, that they'll see what I'm doing and meet me there. But it is hard, like you don't totally know until it happens. Although I did get some good responses when we did the read-throughs. So like when we did the read-through in Nanaimo, we actually had a pretty sizable audience. Like I think about 30 or 40 people came. And I remember one woman said, I feel like I was watching my life in this. And that was amazing to me, that somebody connected with the script that way. So that's my hope, is that yeah, the audience, even though it is kind of non-realistic and you're sort of throwing it out there and you don't know how it will work, but that the audience will still connect with it some way.
What are you looking forward to, the actual stage production of your play?
Well, I'm really excited to see how the Michael and Armando and the whole team that will be part of that. I'm excited to see how they're handling like the different aspects, sort of the technical aspects, like the jumping through time and location. But I'm also just excited to hear the audience respond. I hope parts of the script are quite funny. So even though it's dealing with at times very sad, sad subject matter, it's about grief and loss, but parts of it are also meant to be very funny. So my hope, I do, it's kind of, there's something very cool about writing something and then you're not sure it's working and then you hear an audience respond to it. That's very satisfying. So that's what I'm looking forward to is kind of hearing the audience response, and hopefully they'll connect with it too.
And as a playwright, once something that you've written has come live on stage, for the first time, what is actually the process that happens after that?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I feel like there's not really one path, if you're working at a level where there's really kind of high visibility, like you're Morris Panich or you have a play on Broadway and it does really well, then often it'll be, then other companies will pick it up and they'll produce it and it will just kind of take on this life of its own. When it's on something a smaller scale like this, it could be a whole bunch of things. Like I wrote actually an adaptation of Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility that we did at CAP a few years ago. And then last year, a high school in Montreal contacted me for the rights to do it. So they did my version of Sense and Sensibility in Montreal, which was very cool. So I've also thought of producing this on my own in Vancouver. So I don't know. I mean, I'll add it to my website. It's great that it has had a production, and then, pitch it places, but also maybe produce it myself. So you never know what the life of a play will be after that production. But getting that production is a huge landmark. It kind of makes the play legitimate in a sense. So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't really know yet.
What is it about playwriting that is just so joyful for you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the collaborative nature of it. That I've always loved the theater. Like I remember being a kid and seeing it was a community theater production of Brigadoon at the Couch and Community Theater Center and just being completely entranced. And then from a writing point of view, writing in a lot of ways is kind of lonely. You're by yourself usually, and you just have to kind of do the work and put in the time. But the cool thing about playwriting is that you really get to collaborate with other people. I actually haven't been able to collaborate as much because I'm in Vancouver, but it's really exciting for me to get into a room with a group of actors and directors and to hear them pick it up and hear them talk about it. That's really one of the things that I love. And then I think it's also, like I said earlier, I was sort of looking forward to hearing the audience's reaction. Like for me, I write things because I want to connect with other people. And so, or I want what I'm saying about the world maybe to hopefully connect with somebody else's experience or whatever it might be. Because I kind of feel like, as artists, like what else are we doing this for if not to connect with people and engage with people. So that's also like very satisfying for me, is like, like that person at the reading I told you who said, I feel like I'm seeing my life. Like that was an incredible piece of feedback to get. So if I can do that with one person, then I feel like it was worth it, because that was what I was trying to do in the first place.
Do you have any advice for emerging playwrights, or those that have a play that they don't really know what to do with? Any suggestions for them to kind of move forward with their process? And especially, if somebody is thinking about writing a play, are there things that they need to consider?
Yeah, well, maybe your second question first, in terms of when you're sitting down to write a play. I think one of the biggest, I guess not mistakes, but sort of like maybe like tricky areas I see new writers do is they forget that they're in a theater. They forget that they're in a fixed space that can't move, that can't cut the way a camera does. We're so used to camera media like TV and film and how flexible and amazing that media is. And theater is different. Theater, I think, is more in a sense, it can be in a sense more reliant on our imagination. Not to say that film or TV isn't an imaginative media, but So I would say remember you're in a fixed space and that like one for example, sometimes people will write like running scenes or like scenes where people and I'm like, well, okay, the stage is like 30 feet long. You're going to cover that in 10 seconds and your scene is 5 minutes. So that's not going to work. So you have to kind of like sometimes squeeze reality a little bit to make it fit on the stage. So I would say that'd be one thing. Another thing I would say, like I said earlier, is trust your audience. A lot of times people think that making dialogue like very intense and very dramatic is what plays are about, but it's actually the opposite. Plays are actually kind of built on restraint and on characters like not saying what they think and feel until they've gotten to that moment where it has to come out. So that's what I would say is two things sort of like technically speaking about writing. And then your other question was about if you have a play, what do you do, right? Well, I would say if you haven't done a reading of it, do a reading. So get some friends, buy some pizza, invite them over and say, "Hey, can you read this script with me?" And just like do it around your table and then talk about it. And that will elicit a lot of information for you. It'll tell you like how it's working, is it connecting, how are the actors picking it up, like all kinds of things you'll get from it. The first draft is probably not going to be very good, and that's okay. That's normal, I think, for any kind of writing. Like don't expect that like the thing that pours out of you is going to be, genius. It's going to take a little bit of time to get there, but that process can be really fun and can be just as creative, actually, I think, as the first draft. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, for example, that like Shakespeare and these other writers that we often kind of laud as being geniuses, that they had other actors going, I think this line kind of stinks. Can we change it and do this? Or can we add in a scene here? Like, there's no doubt in my mind because theater is so collaborative and your other artists are attuned to everything they're like trying to pick up everything you're putting down and they'll let you know. So I would say also like use the collaborative process to your benefit. Get a read through done. There's lots of companies like Playwrights Theatre Center is a great BC company for early playwrights. They have like workshop series and all different kinds of things that you can sign up for. I would say check their website out. And then also other ways to do it is to do it yourself. Like the Fringe festivals are a really great place that it's actually fairly affordable where you could put a play up and, get a production under your belt and see how that goes. So I've done several Fringe plays and I'm sure I'll probably do a few more. So that's another way that I would suggest. But going to like an organization like PTC can also then help you connect to other companies. So that's a great kind of channel to start with.
What's next for you? What are you currently working on? I know you're heading back to going back to teaching now, but is there other things on the horizon for your own work?
Yeah, going back to teaching, so it's been kind of like nose to the grindstone the last couple weeks, but I'm actually working on a play for my school. So I'm doing another adaptation. I'm doing an adaptation called Lost in Wonderland, which is adapted from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. We as a faculty, we thought of Alice in Wonderland, but we all wanted a like a modern day adaptation, and so they were like, Michelle, why don't you do it? But it's actually been really fun. So I still have another draft that I want to do for that, but we've got a cast assembled, and another faculty member is directing it. We'll be performing that in November. So that's kind of my big creative project for the fall, which I'm really excited about.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I think that's all I have for right now. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I mean, I just thank you to the Yellow Point Drama Group and the Arts Council of Ladysmith. It's very cool to connect with. Like I said, I thought that it might work because the play is set on the island. So I'm really, really grateful and excited that this is going to get a debut on the island, very close to where a lot of the ideas kind of came from. So
Yes, yes, it's going to be good, and the cast is all excited, and they've started rehearsing, and this, as you mentioned, Armando is building the set, and marketing is in place. Tickets are now available as well too through the yellowpointdramagroup.org website as well, and we'll attach a link for that as well too. The show starts September 30th We're having a gala that night. So doors will open at 7. Show starts at 7:30 with some fun things as well too. So we're really looking forward to that. And then it runs till October 16th. There's evening shows and matinees available as well too. So we'll put a link down for people who are interested in purchasing tickets to come and see it at the Cedar Community Hall. So thanks,
Awesome.
Michelle. I really appreciate you taking the time to having a chat with us, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with in the future. And we're really excited to be able to have this opportunity to put on your production.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Francesca.